And those are the questions I want to ask Bernie, which is why he won't come on the show. So they're ducking our show officially. They won't come on. Every time I talk to Bernie's press secretary, Josh says, I have to look at the schedule. So it's insulting to even talk to them right now. Because I have to look at the schedule. He's doing every neoliberal show in the world.
This is the kind of shit I can't take from Bernie. Like, Bernie, stop doing that shit. And if it's your staff, tell them to cut it out. What are you fucking doing? You don't have to do that shit. People love you. You don't have to play their stupid game.
Once a brain, once expanded, never regains its former shape.
Our lizard brains.
A ballot measure wins, yet the Democratic candidate doesn't win. And my theory is it's the stench of the Democratic Party. What do you think?
Well, I think with Gillum, he did tack to the center after he won the primary. And he did float out there campaigning with Hillary. Bernie Sanders, why did Bernie Sanders endorse Mike Levin when Mike Levin didn't agree to co-sponsor, you know, H.R. 676? That was strange to me. He didn't endorse Katie Hill or Katie Porter, who are all for Medicare for all, and yet he endorses Mike Levin. Now, what he should have done was endorse Doug Applegate in the primary, who was for single payer. So this is weird. And he endorses Amar Kampa-Najjar, who was the Obama staffer, the Clinton supporter. And James Alaya told me that Amar wouldn't even appear on the stage with him in the Oceanside rally.
52% of Republicans are for Medicare for all. That's what I think. The problem is that people hate the Democratic brand. Also been on the receiving end of Democratic Party dirty tricks and election tampering, not only in the 2016 race against Debbie Wasserman Schultz, but in the recently concluded 2018 race as well.
So, yeah, in the aftermath of the 2016 race, we put in a public records request to inspect the ballots. And the long and short of it is that the supervisor of elections, Brenda Snipes, who I guess is sort of becoming a household name at this point, finally, she stonewalled us for months. I filed a lawsuit to enforce our rights to inspect the ballots. And while the lawsuit was pending, Snipes destroyed all of the ballots. So it was essentially tampering with evidence, obstructing justice, violating federal and state criminal statutes, punishable as felonies by up to 5 years in prison, lying to the court, perjuring herself on a destruction order. The list goes on. And, you know, we proved our case in court. The Florida Circuit Court granted a summary judgment, had a 10-page order that found all of these violations that I just listed. And for that matter, Snipes even admitted to the destruction of the ballots on sworn videotape deposition. So I thought when all of that broke and we won on summary judgment, that Rick Scott, the governor, would fire the supervisor of elections, replace her with a new team, and that there'd be criminal law enforcement agencies getting involved with investigating the wrongdoing. And how wrong I was, none of that happened. And of course, it got back to me that the reason it didn't happen was they just wanted to protect the status quo. They all had the same corporate backers, the same donors. At that point, I thought about dropping out of this race, running as an independent. And I said quite often, there's no reason they won't just rig this one against me. They got away with it last time. They could do the same exact thing they may have done last time, which the theories are they rigged the software and then threw out the ballots to protect themselves. So here we are, you know, in the final weeks of my campaign. The campaign was certainly on fire, and we had a much stronger ground game than any of the other candidates. There had been a Floridian press report of a poll that I never saw, but the report itself was something in that the report said that this Republican poll had me tied with Wasserman Schultz at 34% each in a dead heat.
And that poll it wasn't released, but it was reported on, that showed you two neck and neck. So, and then to come out, it seems exactly like what you just said. So I just want to show, you've tweeted this out, caught on video. Concerned citizen sees ballots being transported in private vehicles and transferred to rented truck on election night. This violates all chain of custody requirements for paper ballots. Were the ballots destroyed and replaced by a set of fake ballots? Investigate now. So here's a little bit, I'm just going to show a little bit of this video.
I know it's dark and it's hard to see. I think by 2 ladies just walked up there with the provisional ballots, walking back into the precinct, and a bag of, like, you know, the paper ballots. And I said to them, I go, what, you just can carry those around? And they said, no, the truck left them. But the truck's right here, so I'm not real sure what the hell's going on here. But I don't think it's right.
Tim, now tell us what do you think we're seeing here? Now, you've seen this video. Tell us what you think we're seeing.
Well, I've talked to election lawyers about it, and I've been told by election lawyers that it shows a breakdown in the chain of custody, that under Florida law, when those ballots are removed from the electronic voting machines, they're stuffed into these big blue satchels, which you see in the video. Now, they're going to be transported to the supervisor of elections warehouse in Lauderhill. Here, they're being, you see a line of cars driven by one person. Those ballots are always supposed to be in the custody of two people, never of one. And then when they're transferred, they're being transferred onto the back of a truck, a rented truck, an enterprise truck, I believe. The lawyers tell me there should have been a sheriff's deputy there signing for those ballots. To then the sheriff's deputy would then transport the ballots to the supervisor's Lauderhill warehouse.
Are you serious?
So none of that happened, and when the chain of custody is broken on the paper ballots, it basically means you can't have any confidence in a hand recount of paper ballots.
So
now we have a supervisor of elections here who already has a history of destroying ballots in a very important congressional primary. So it's not too far-fetched for folks to be wondering, is that what they're doing? Instead of waiting some months after the election, are they doing it election night?
you know, it's just amazing, too, the lack of coverage this got, considering that Debbie Wasserman Schultz was part of the biggest election fraud ever committed in the history of the United States.
Well, that I've been arguing with one of your detractors on Twitter about you being on Fox News. So this is what I want to ask you. He's basically saying that you are being a useful idiot, Jimmy and I love this word, for DeSantis and for Rick Scott.
I want you to continue to say you're a liberal because you're of great use to good values.
Well, don't worry, I'm not doing it for your use of me. I'm doing it for myself.
No. It's like Christians who say to me, you know, oh, we would love you to come to Christ, but you are so valuable to us as a Jew when you defend us Christians. Yeah. And they're right. You are valuable in the best sense of the word.
I brought this up to Cenk on election night, too, that so it really must have jarred them then, because when in CNN in Santa Monica during the 2016 primary, I think it was Santa Monica, there was a room full of Bernie Sanders supporters chanting CNN sucks. So
it was in Hollywood, but yes.
It was in Hollywood. So they're used to getting that from the right, as you said. They've always, that's their whole thing. The media is liberal and they criticize them for being liberal, which they're not, they're corporate. But so that must have really jarred them when those, just an organic chant.
No. And look, we've forgotten it because it's been a while since the primaries in 2016, et cetera. I would lead those chants in Bernie rallies. And I did it in Northern California, I did it in Southern California. Not CNN sucks, but I would say, do you trust the mainstream media? And it would be raucous, no! Because you have betrayed them by, not because of the politics, but because you're not covering the facts as they are. You're being neutral between lies and truth. And that is what the left feels aggrieved upon. Not that you're not biased in their favor, but that you're biased in favor of lies because you equated them to the truth. I'm gonna read one last thing. Outraged leftist voter tweeted in, glad I took the day off. Finally get to watch Aggressive Progressive live. Hey, there you go.
People are using Trump's animosity towards the press or his hyperbolic language towards the press as a shield from actual criticism. That they actually deserve, right? So I just wanted to remind people that, you know, people who are rallying around Jim Acosta and the corporate news need to remember that the corporate news is not your friend, that the corporate news is corporate. and that their interest serves the corporation and the donors, not you, which is why Jake Tapper tells us that Medicare for All is more expensive than the system we have right now. So that's a lie that Jake Tapper is allowed to say at the top of his lungs on a big platform like CNN, and progressives like us are supposed to now rally around CNN. That is not happening as far as I'm concerned. And I want to just give a real brief history of what the Young Turks is about, what I think this show is about, what the Jimmy Dore show is about media criticism, because that's what has let us down. And I just want to remind people, during the after the aftermath of the Iraq War, most of the people still thought that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, and that drove Cenk crazy, and I want to just show a little bit of that.
Show the goddamn paper right here, okay? What does USA safer, Bush says. Picture, headline, USA safer, Bush says. Okay. USA Today, you suck balls. You are a terrible newspaper. You know what he did in that press conference yesterday and how we covered it? He lied over and over about how this is a war between Al-Qaeda and Iraq. It's not a war between Al-Qaeda and Iraq. It's a war between Shiites and Sunnis. Civil war that we're stuck in. And what does the USA Today incompetent losers say? USA safer, Bush says. That is a lie. They've done a terrible job. Every one of these editors in every major newspaper, in every major magazine, in every major television news organization should be fired today.
Wow, that's pretty fiery. They, USA Today, they do suck balls. So that's
the underrated part of this whole video is Michael Schur. And just the way he was so polite, and he just took the berating from Cenk.
He did take a berating, but he was saying some pretty stuff that would make you upset. Yeah. He was defending the press in that situation, and there was Cenk, you know, going full nuclear on the press. And he was right. Cenk was right, by the way, I think, in my opinion.
Cenk was right, yeah.
Well, we understand the concept of protecting press.
Yes.
But we don't abide by protecting corporate tools.
Right.
I mean, that's the big difference.
Well, I'm also trying to explain people the animosity towards the press is not just on the right. It's not just Trump supporters. There's Cenk Uygur, home of the progressives, calling out the press unilaterally. Every editor in every paper should be fired because they've done a bad job. So this isn't just a phenomenon with Trump that the press and the establishment wants you to think it is. And let's remember when Bernie Sanders was running is when a lot of progressives really woke up to just how bad the corporate media is, and it is really bad. Right? So if you go to my computer, remember Fair caught this. Washington Post ran 16 negative stories on Bernie Sanders in 16 hours. That was from the primary in March of 2016. We know what the deal is. And this leads to this.
Sanders rally is happening right now. Now, he has not come out to give a speech yet, but there is a big crowd there. And apparently they started a couple of chants. I believe you're going to enjoy them. This is a periscope from the event.
Chanting CNN sucks about 10 minutes ago. They said the same thing and they called for the Young Turks, chanting TYT, TYT. Basically, they're calling out the mainstream media for the coverage of this election.
So the left has a grievance with the press. They, en masse, in public, chant CNN sucks. Now, apparently, because this is going on, here's Jim Acosta. Now he goes to Trump rallies, and basically the exact same thing happens at a Trump rally, but now it's all new. It's like it never happened before, like nobody ever had a problem with the press. So here he is, he says, just a sample of the sad scene we faced at a Trump rally in Tampa. I'm very worried that the hostility whipped up by Trump and some in conservative media will result in somebody getting hurt. We should not treat our fellow Americans this way. The press is not the enemy. Well, that is not what the left and the right think, Jim. Maybe you should go, oh, why? So when progressives show up, they say we suck. When Trump voters show up, they say we suck. Maybe we suck. Maybe there's something wrong with CNN and corporate news. No, he puts it back on them. And here, well, I want to show you. He tweets this out. Here's the video. So here's the video of the people flipping him off. By the way, they look pretty docile. They look very docile, if you ask me. Guy, he's got it. The media. He's got it. Or there it is. So there's a guy flipping on. There's a guy yelling, "Tell the truth." This guy, "Stop lying, tell the truth," right? Which sounds a lot like stuff that people at a Bernie rally would yell at CNN. And but here's the interesting part about Jim Acosta. I always knew he was a grandstander, and I always knew he was doing bad journalism. And so now there's a gentleman named Evan Axelbank. He works for Fox 13. He says Trump supporters can boo and say forever that they hate CNN and Jim Acosta. But after the cameras are off, all I see is them asking his opinion on everything under the sun. And if they can take pictures with him, it's quite a phenomenon. And he handles it like a pro. So what that tells me about Jim Acosta is that Jim Acosta is a self-serving, self-aggrandizing, grandstanding corporate tool, which he is. And so now everybody's rallying around Jim Acosta because Trump is rude to him. Okay, I'll show. But here's what I love what Michael Tracy says about Jim Acosta. He says it would be easier to defend Jim Acosta's right to access people in power if he produced something of value.
We have a call. The first official call of the night. Bernie Sanders has won. Bernie Sanders is the current senator from Vermont.
Oh, who'd he beat, Mr. Potter?
So, the least surprising victory of the night. So obviously he's running for re-election. So is Elizabeth Warren. She will win later tonight. But it's always fun to declare Bernie Sanders the victor. All right, now we have
Bernie Sanders running outside the two-party system to become senator.
Okay, independent has won. By the way, Democratic Party not backing the Democratic Party in Maine. That should be made clear as well. Is that Boss Hogg? What is that? It's that guy showed up from the 1800s to take on Bernie Sanders?
Having fun with that hat, though.
Oh, yeah, he is. All right.
He's running against William Jennings Bryan.
He's going to go back.
There you go. That's it.
He's going to go back to his job as the town crier.
And then we take our fight for social, economic, racial, and environmental justice to Philadelphia.
Yes! Yes! Fucking Philly, baby! We're going to fucking Philly! Yes! I fucking love this town! We are fucking going to Philly! We are going to Philly! We are going to Philly! We are going to Philly! Yes!
Thanks for ruining my day.